Orlando Magic. Man, f the Magic, bro. F this game. I'm mad, man. And also, my girl is at Disney for the weekend, so I got an open crib, and I'm allowed to scream as loud as I want to this late at night, so I'm gonna act a lot more mad than I actually am. Even though I genuinely am very mad, and not just because I've been telling y'all all year to go on FanDuel, the sponsor of today's video, and take the Miami Heat to win the Southeast Division. Right now, those odds are at plus 200, but they're probably going to get even bigger as the Miami Heat just lost to the Orlando Magic again for the second time this season. And I wanted to beat this team. You know, not just because of the betting stuff, but the Magic are a good team. You know, I want to give them credits. I thought defensively they were phenomenal today, even though I didn't love everything the Heat did, especially that game-winning possession, which we'll get into. But I want to beat the Magic because this is the second time we lost to them. And late in the season, they're a team who's you're gonna be neck and neck with in the standings. And I think having the tiebreaker, having wins against them, that whole sort of thing could be a big difference maker in terms of leapfrogging them in the standings. So you're gonna have to start to beat some of these teams that you're close with, you know, like the Pistons and the Magic, and the Heat haven't played the Raptors yet, but those will be very big matchups as well. So I really wanted this one tonight, and I'm even more mad because late in that game, my God, my guy Kamehameha Jr. was cooking defensively, something that we haven't said before. Now, he's been very solid defensively this year. Even his opponent defensive field goal percentage has been awesome this year. But he almost single-handedly saved this game for the Heat, or at least gave them an opportunity to win, because when the Heat slowly started creeping back into this game, my God, was it a slow burn, because it took them forever. They couldn't hit enough threes to go on any sort of run. They didn't even take enough threes to go on any sort of run. They couldn't hit any free throws to sustain a run, so they slowly started chipping away. But late in the last couple of minutes, when you needed a stop, it was Jaime Jaquez who got you both of them. Had a beautiful closeout on Franz Wagner, who was cooking all night tonight, and then blocked Wendell Carter Jr. after he got an offensive rebound, because of course he did. Because once again, Spo refuses to close with Khalil Wear, and it doesn't make sense to me. You know, I want to talk a little bit about Ware because he did get the start today. Obviously, that was a big story coming into the game. You had no Tyler Herro. We were all hoping Spo would start Khalil Wear, and I thought he was going to, just because, of course, the Magic are a very big team. They got Paolo Banchero back tonight to be even bigger. And Spo did start Ware, and I don't think Ware was great. I don't think his minutes with Bam were all that good. I think Bam was awesome tonight before he botched the game-winning possession, which, again, we'll get into. But I think Ware was kind of lost a lot of times defensively. He'll always have a couple of great highlight plays to make you jump out your seat. You know, had a great lob dunk today, a great block on Paolo. But for the most part, I felt like he was giving up the lob too much. I felt like he was getting beat back door a little bit too much. And it just wasn't his best performance defensively. But that being said, I wish Spo would trust the second-year guy and put him in there late in the game to try to work through some of these mistakes, because you really, really need him and what he provides. Because, okay, let's say you put Ware in the game. Maybe he gets better, gets some rebounds, blocks some shots, right? Has some easy putback dunks. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he continues looking lost out there, and he's a reason that you lose the game. But what we do know, right, because we don't know what Ware would do, but what we do know is that without Ware in the game, you're way too damn small against the Magic team that closed with a lineup of Paolo, Franz, and Wendell. I mean, Paolo didn't play the whole fourth quarter. He didn't actually play that much today. But I think the last couple of minutes, he was in there. And that's just way too much size for Miami to compete with Wiggins at the 4. You know, I thought Wiggins was very good defensively today for the most part. But, of course, there's only so much these guys can do. There's only so much a 6'7" Wiggins could do and a 6'6" Jaime Jaquez. So you know that even if you play the best defense in the world, the Magic are still going to get the rebound because they're that much bigger. And they did have a few critical offensive rebounds and putbacks late in the game. They had a possession where they had like 3 shot attempts, and you just can't expect to win clutch games when you're giving up that many offensive rebounds late in the game. So as much as I don't think Ware had his best performance today, I wish he should have been in there late. Now, I guess who he should have been in there for, I'm not entirely sure, because Jaime was the guy in there, and he was awesome. Which kind of brings me to another point, is the whole Tyler Herro thing. You know, I don't want to keep going back and forth on Tyler Herro, but it was sort of an interesting experiment to see what the Heat looked like, again, without him today. Of course, after he's come back for a handful of games now. And what I had been saying is I think their optimal closing lineup is without him, because, of his lack of good defense, right? So now that we saw this game was approaching clutch time, I said, okay, let me see if my hypothesis and theory is correct, right? And sure enough, the Heat started coming back in that game because of their defense. I think the Heat were down 10 in the fourth quarter, but they were able to continually get these stops and, yes, give up offensive rebounds, but they kept getting stops, had a bunch of block shots tonight, and that is what slowly allowed them to chip back in this game. Even Davion Mitchell, who had a rough defensive outing to start too. I feel like Suggs was kind of doing whatever he wanted for a while. Davion really locked in, and you were able to get a bunch of stops. And then, as we just mentioned, it was Jaime Jaquez who got you 2 critical stops. And if Tyler was healthy, it would have been Tyler in the game instead of Jaime Jaquez. We know this. And Tyler Herro is not contesting Franz Wagner the way Jaime did. Tyler Herro is not blocking Wendell Carter Jr., forcing a jump ball with 3 seconds on the shot clock like Jaime Jaquez did. Tyler's just not doing those things. And I don't know. I just think we see a bit of a different game. I don't even think the Heat have a chance to get to the final possession with a chance to win if Herro was in there. Now, that being said, hey, maybe they would have blew out the Magic if Herro played. We don't know. Again, I've always said Tyler Herro helps this team because tonight would have been a perfect example. Because you look at the Heat's 3-point shooting today, or should I say lack thereof, they only shot I think they shot less than 23 pointers today. Let me pull up the stats for y'all real quick. So on the day, the Miami Heat shot 19 threes. They were 7-19. So another pretty bad shooting night after a horrendous shooting night versus Dallas last game. So that being said, hey, take the over tomorrow versus Sacramento. The Heat are bound to light it up eventually. But 19 threes in the big year of 2025 is nowhere close to enough. You just can't win when you take 19 threes to the Magic's 34. They hit 12 threes, you hit 7, so they didn't shoot the ball well anyways, but you can't take 19 threes in 2025. It's just almost impossible to win games like that. And had you had Tyler Herro, who is such a phenomenal shooter, I think he would have helped the Heat a lot when they got in on a lot of those dry spells like we saw in the third quarter, for example. But that being said, if a game does happen to get in clutch time, whether it was tonight's or another game, you can kind of see how critical the defense is when trying to make a comeback. So I hope that kind of makes sense for y'all. We'll go through a little bit of my notes here because I don't have too many, and then we'll talk about that final possession. But in the first quarter, the Heat were down 30-28. I don't think either team played or shot the ball particularly well. Both teams kind of came out today with more of a defensive effort, unlike the first game of the year where it was super high pace, back and forth scoring, flying all over the place. Tonight was a bit of the opposite. You can tell by the final score, 106-105. I think the first game was like in the 120s, both teams. So definitely a slower pace tonight all throughout. In the second quarter, Bam Adebayo was really aggressive. That's when we saw him pass Glenn Rice in all-time leading scorers in Heat franchise history. So shout out to Bam Adebayo. He's now in third place behind Dwayne Wade and Alonzo Mourning. I'm curious to run the numbers, though. See if Bam maybe has a chance to pass Dwayne one day. It sounds crazy to say, but hey, who knows? But it just goes to show that Bam Adebayo has solidified himself as an all-time Heat player. And any discussions of him being sent out for Giannis is just not going to happen. And I think most people understand that by now. But shout out to Bam Adebayo. The Heat would be up, actually, at the end of the second quarter, 60-57. And then the third quarter was very ugly. Couldn't hit a shot. Had awful turnovers. I think they had 3 straight turnovers to start the third quarter. And they were the type of turnovers that you see at the pickup, if you're playing pickup basketball and you see a team that has next and they all suck and they throwing the ball over the place, they can't dribble. That's what the Heat look like. They look like the team at the local park that doesn't have a guard and no one can dribble or shoot. That's what they look like. Rough start for them. Ware had another bad play that we always got to point out, where Ware would get a nice rebound and then turn it over immediately. He did that again tonight. We've been pointing that out. This time it was after a great offensive rebound. And he just doesn't look before he kicks it out. I appreciate he's trying to play with more effort and energy, but he needs to work on the balance between playing more up-tempo, but also staying more focused and kind of eliminating some of these dumb turnovers, which he will learn to do. But yeah, they got off to a rough start. It was Norman and Bam that really kept the Heat alive from getting blown out. Bam hit a nice 3, had a tough and one, was mean mugging. Wiggins would have a difficult step back. It was a long two, unfortunately. But then he had a beautiful block on Anthony Black in transition. Finally, somebody was able to stop Anthony Black because he was also really great tonight. And he's having a great season, too, to his credits. But it was basically a fast break, and Norman did not give up. He sprinted back, swatted it out. They called a foul on Norman because these refs were, that was so obviously a block. They called it a foul. Of course, Spo would challenge, and he won the challenge like he's mostly been doing this season. But shout out to Norman Powell for that. I did listen to him and Bam were on the Old Man and the Three podcast, JJ Redick's old podcast, which now Tommy Alter took over once JJ started coaching. It was a great episode. Norman and Bam spoke for about 50 minutes, and they went in a lot on heat culture and how Norman's had to sort of adjust to that and get in conditioning shape, and Norman loves it. He said that he's really built for that, and you can certainly see that, throughout this whole season, and especially a play like the one we just discussed, where he sprints back in transition to get the block. I absolutely love everything that Norman Powell's brought to you this season. But also in that quarter, Jalen Suggs, that's when he really got going. I think he had like 15 points. Franz Wagner also couldn't be stopped. I think Jaime did a poor job kind of carrying that second unit. I think his overall efficiency today wasn't that bad by the numbers. Jaime Hawkins today 8 of 14, yeah, so that's 57%. But the ones he misses, the ones that he missed, they're almost all bunnies, And earlier this season, Jaime was just so ultra efficient. We're talking, over 60% consistently. And of course, you're going to regress to the means a little bit. You're not going to shoot 60% for a season. But he's still missing a lot of those bunnies like he wasn't missing earlier this season. A lot of those, 7 to 8 foot push shots. So I understand he still shot 57% tonight, but based off the looks he was getting, I wish it was a little bit higher. In the fourth quarter, he did get back-to-back buckets, got going a little bit, but in that third quarter, he kind of let things slip away a little bit. Pelle Larsson continues to be awful in terms of his shot making. Even today, Pelle Larsson was 0 for 4. He can't even, and again, we're talking layups with him. If he's missing threes, whatever, you don't expect Pelle to hit threes, but he's been missing a lot of layups. He hasn't really had the touch that he had to start the season either. The Heat couldn't hit a free throw in that quarter, or the fourth quarter, or the whole game. Tonight, they finished 18 to 27. You missed 9 free throws in a game you lost by 1. I know I should look at that as a positive and say, hey, you hit 2 more free throws, you win the game, but it's like that doesn't change the result. In the grand scheme of things, this loss could be irrelevant. The Heat could win 10 in a row. We don't care about this, but it's just unfortunate to lose games because of free throws. That part is always difficult. But yeah, bit of an ugly third quarter. Although the Heat had some beautiful blocks, though. I thought they had a good interior presence inside. So nice to see them have a few games in a row, really protecting the paint well after that game versus the Pistons, where the Pistons had like 100 paint points. But we saw Wiggins with a beautiful block on Paolo, kind of taking contact and raising up, swatting it into the 7th row. And then Ware had a great play where Paolo was matched up on Davion. Looked like Paolo had an easy layup, but Ware did a beautiful job rotating and swat that shot into the 7th row. And then Bam Adebayo swatted a Jalen Suggs shot into the 7th row. So a lot of great interior defense for the Heat that time, but for the most part, they couldn't contain Suggs and Franz from the perimeter, and the Heat would be down 8 going into the fourth quarter. They're chipping away. Paolo had a possession. He missed both free throws. So it seemed like the comeback wasn't going to happen. But then Powell hit a 3 to cut the deficit to 3 with 4.5 minutes to go. But that's when the Heat gave up the back-to-back offensive rebounds to the Magic. They were switching way too much for my liking. I was watching possessions with Powell getting matched up on Franz. And for the most part, Powell kind of held his own, but Franz was still scoring. And that's when I really, really wanted to see Ware in the game at some point. But regardless, they had a chance. Jaime played the great defense. The Heat, Spo would call a timeout to try to draw a play because the Heat got the ball 25 seconds to go. They tried to push. I thought Powell kind of settled for a difficult fadeaway. He missed it, but the Magic would knock it out of bounds. Spo will call timeout, try to draw up a play. The Magic would intentionally foul us, and that left us with about 3 seconds to inbound the ball, and that's how much time we had to get a game winner off. They would inbound to Bam, and for some reason, Powell's coming to the ball looking for a dribble handoff, even though it's obviously not going to be there. There's only 3 seconds on the clock. By the time Powell curls all the way up, I don't even think there would have been time for him to get a clean look off. it didn't make sense to try to run any sort of dribble handoff with that little amount of time left. Bam had the ball. He had Wendell Carter on him, who was backpedaling. Bam should have just went to the basket, made a move, did a midi pull-up, something. Instead, he completely botched it because they ended up forcing a Bam, like, heavily contested fadeaway three that he airballed because he just didn't want to make a move. You know, I don't know if that's his fault for not being aggressive and not trying to get to the rim or get a shot off, or if the play was to run a dribble handoff for Norman Powell and Powell decided not to go for it. But the point is they completely botched that, which is difficult, you know, to even get a playoff in the first place. I understand the Heat had no more timeouts left. So once the Magic intentionally fouled us, you kind of had to come up with something on the fly. But to not even get a shot off in that spot, it should be inexcusable, you know. You're the max guy, Bam. You got the ball. You had the ball in ISO. Go make a play. You know, I don't even know why Norman Powell was coming to the ball. Clear out for Bam. Let him go make a play. He was absolutely cooking tonight. It was just sad to see them absolutely botch it. I mean, Bam about today, 24 points and 15 rebounds, 9 of 15 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. That sucks. Can't even get a shot off on that. And that's ridiculous. And that's why I'm mad. But Andrew Wiggins today, 13 points, 5 of 10 from the field. And he hit a few threes today, 2 of 4 from 3. So nice to see him get a little bit of an offensive bounce back after he was god awful last game versus the Mavericks. But I thought defensively today he was awesome. Bam Adebayo today, we talked about his numbers. He was very good defensively as well. Khalil Wear today, only 22 minutes in his start, 4 points, 8 rebounds, 1 of 3 from the field. We talked about him as well. Defensively, he wasn't at his best. Norman Powell today, with no Tyler Herro, got you 28 points on 9 of 18 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3, but 8 of 11 from the free throw line. So outside of the free throws, very efficient night for him. It's just unfortunate they couldn't get a clean look off at the end. Davion Mitchell today, 10 points, 2 rebounds, 7 assists, 0 turnovers. My God, every night with this guy, he does not commit any turnovers. Shout out my guy. We're going to give him a long-standing ovation today because I think they said on the broadcast, coming into this game, I think he's at 70 in the last however many games. He's at 72 assists to 7 turnovers. That's an assist to turnover ratio of over 10-1. And then he added another 7 assists and 0 turnovers today. I can't understate how insane that is, or overstate how insane that is. That's why I do the standing ovation thing. I mean, it's a little bit of a gimmick, sure, but we are witnessing an all-time assist to turnover ratio talent from Davion Mitchell. From a guy we didn't even expect this from. We expected him to be a lockdown perimeter defender who could get to the rim a little bit, you know? But maybe drive and kick a little bit. But, oh my God, 79. So I guess now, if I remembered the stat correctly, he's around 80 assists to 7 turnovers in his last, dozen games or whatever it was. Oh, what a point guard. That's my future point guard, man. Giannis wants to think he wants to come in here and play point guard. No. You sit in the corner and you watch Davion Mitchell operate, Giannis. That is a ridiculous statement to say. Jaime Jaquez today, 16 points for your boy, 8 of 14. Should have had more, like we said earlier, but obviously he was phenomenal defensively. We talked about Pelle Larsson and his 0 points. Drew Smith today chipped in 5 points, and Simone Fontecchio 5 points on 1 of 3 shooting from 3. Yeah, we talked about him a little bit last game. I said it gets to a point where it's no longer regressing to the means, and it's just you sucking. I actually looked at the stats prior to today's game. I think he was at like 16% from 3 in his last 6 games. So if you want to say, hey, 6 games is too small sample size to be critical, okay, I guess 6 games is not that small. But then I even went back and looked at his last 15 games, which is obviously a large chunk. And I think he was at like 31% from 3 on 5 attempts. And that's just not good. So if you're asking me at this point in the season, has Simone Fontecchio been good? I think at this point the answer is no. A month ago I said he was the Italian Steph Curry. And unfortunately, it seemed like that was a little bit of a flash in the pan. Even the one he hit today was off a wild sequence when he was wide open. And I didn't even expect him to hit that. But outside of that, he had an awful turnover where he was... he forgot to dribble and he's just moving his feet. He's flipping up all these bad hooks left and right. He's leaving Tristan DeSilva open. It's been a rough stretch for our guy Simone. But I think before I completely jump off the bandwagon, I'm going to give him one more game. If he cannot shoot over 40% from 3 tomorrow versus Sacramento Kings, you're dead to me. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but who cares? That's all I got to say about this game, though. I guess I want to glance at the Magic stats actually real quick. Franz today, 32 points on 54% shooting. Yeah, he's awesome. Paulo today, only 20 minutes. Certainly was rusty. 9 points for him. They held Desmond Bane in check. You know, he was great against Miami in the first game. Struggled a little bit after that, but then he's really picked it up late for the Magic. So I think so far Magic fans are happy with him. But yeah, he was awful tonight. 2 of 16. Wow, that's ugly. And then Jalen Suggs today was great. 22 points for him. And then Anthony Black had 13, 8, and 6. He got to the free throw line 12 times. So yeah, he definitely needed to do a little bit of a better job there. But I think that's all I got to say for this game. If I remember correctly, they played the Magic again on Friday. I don't know. At some point, I think within the next week, the Heat take on the Magic again. Yeah, okay, Thursday. So what's today? Friday. So in about 6 days, and that will be the NBA Cup game. So if y'all care about that sort of thing, then hey, maybe you'd rather lose today to beat the Magic in a week. But I don't know. Right now on FanDuel, they actually don't show the Heat or Magic's odds to win the NBA Cup because this game just finished. But you can see here, they got the Knicks at plus 650 and the Raptors at plus 1500. I'd imagine the Heat and Magic, for that matter, to be somewhere around there. I think the NBA Cup is only like 3 games if you want to win it all. So, hey, if you think that he can win 3 games in a row, maybe you want to throw a little bit of money on plus 1500-ish. We'll see what happens when FanDuel releases the odds. But that's all I got to say for this video. Make sure y'all subscribe. I'm on the grind to hit 9,000 subs. I do greatly appreciate all your support. Leave your comments down below. I'm very curious to see what y'all think. And also like the video because your support is greatly appreciated. That being said, the Heat do play the Sacramento Kings tomorrow. So I will see y'all with a post game after that. Peace out, everyone.
Pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.